Carl and Lou here from Brrraains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial short, and it's track by track time. I was making a debut on this track by track series again after doing it for so many years already now. It's like, oh, it's always cool when a band's first album, not their debut album, but their first time they're appearing on this track by track. Yep. And that's the case with this one. You've seen the title is, of course, Biffy Clyro's Puzzle album. Chosen because not a fan of this band, but this effectively was the album that catapulted them into the mainstream. As far as I'm aware, I never heard of Biffy Clyro pre this album. And then this album came out when it did, which was 2007. And it blew up. It blew up. A lot of these songs were singles, a lot of these songs were hits. And they never really looked back from there. Yeah, I listened to this album at the time. Yeah. I actually remember liking lots of parts of this album. And certainly, but that was it. Like, I never followed along after that. I had no interest.
No, I think I know a couple of the newer ones, like the bigger tracks they play live. But apart from this album, I'd never listened to any other albums of theirs. When I was looking into this album, it was saying the previous albums were a bit more they like different time signatures, and they're a bit more kind of complex. So I think they dropped a bit of that and just had a bit more easy to access rock songs
and more accessibility.
Yeah, I think that kind of helped them.
Yeah, it's the fourth studio album by, of course, the Scottish rock band Biffy Clyro. Released 4th of June 2007. Later released in America in August. So, cool way to fight piracy there by having a 2-month gap between releases in areas. God, we were so dumb back then, weren't we, when it came to releases?
Just put all out at the same time.
Just stick it out at the same time, you know. The album reached number 2 in the UK albums charts to widespread critical acclaim. Also reached number 17 in Ireland and number 39 in the overall world charts. So, very, very successful. Certified platinum in the UK, having sold over 300,000 copies. So yeah, it was very, very successful. I do vaguely remember going back after listening to this album and listening to earlier stuff and actually not getting on with it at all. I think that might have been part of the reason why I never really followed any further on the journey of Biffy Clyro at the time. But what is a track by track if not for honesty? Yeah. I had a miserable time with this album. I ended up disliking this. I went in thinking, it's been a long time since I've heard this album. Been a long time since I've heard several of these songs. I'm excited to hear them again. I remember liking them when I was younger. I'm sure I'm going to like them even more now. And stuff like that. It's gone the other way. I had a thoroughly miserable time. There was good songs in it. There's good melodies. There's good rhythms. There's unusual elements. There's good... All the stuff's there. But when it all gets put together... I just didn't like a lot of it.
Oh, see, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Okay, so it's the opposite. So literally the opposite. And you enjoyed it more than you thought it would. I enjoyed it less than I thought I would.
Yeah, I wouldn't go and jump into anything else Biffy Clyro. I'm still not a fan, and like.
Right, so is it fair to say you've got a new appreciation for them?
Yeah, and I can see why. Like, if you're a fan, like being like Headline Setter Downo would have been perfect for you because you get all these kind of big songs live and.
Oh, I completely understand that. I completely understand the accessibility. I completely understand the popularity. I completely understand why they're headlining festivals like Download and Reading and Leeds and stuff like that in the UK. It all makes complete sense for me. I almost dare I say, to me, they're utterly unoffensive. I've got no dislike, disdain for them, but I've also got no love. To me, they just exist as a popular band that I don't... And it's not even that I don't get it. That I just don't like. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Okay, so we begin the album with one of the biggest hitters from this album, if not overall in the Biffy Clyro catalogue. It is Living as a Problem Because Everything Dies. This is a pretty cool introduction that does build up anticipation nicely. Definitely off kilter at first, quite cinematic, then the vocals hit, and I'm not convinced. Thankfully, it kicks into a fairly catchy rock number, and the chorus is pretty good. I think it balances progressive ideas and radio-friendly rock. Quite nicely.
I liked the dramatic start. I felt like a kind of movie soundtrack.
Yeah. Cinematics, the one I used, yeah.
I like layering on this one, and I always like violins, so I really enjoyed that part. Having the choir coming as well, it did feel a bit more end of an album kind of song for me.
It's a weird intro, right?
Yeah, but it's a strong start for me, so like it did take me back to when I first listened to this album, and I was like, okay, this might be good.
Yeah, this is probably what the
experience.
Yeah, this is probably the track I was most familiar with, obviously, from it. Saturday Superhouse. you just don't get more straightforward than this. If I wasn't really paying too much attention, right, and it was just in the background and I never knew who I was listening to and it was just playing, say, on the radio, I think I might mistake it for a Foo Fighters track. Forgettable.
Yeah.
Forgettable, even if it's decent and even if it's got a decent enough beat and a catchy enough chorus.
Yeah. I found this track enjoyable. I do like his vocals and a kind of right level of roughness for me. But again, nothing memorable. I won't go back to this one. I like his vocals.
So do I, but I would never in a million years use the word roughness at any point in this. It's all pure smooth, all the way, as far as I'm concerned.
Smooth.
You know?
I know what I'm trying to get across. Like, they're not rough, they're not gravelly, but...
It's something you're getting from.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, for me, it's a very smooth vocal experience. Who's got a match? The beat is a pop rock foot tapper, but there's just enough odd touches throughout to make it more notable. It's short, passes by uneventfully, but I did find I liked it at the end when I look back at kind of like what I was enjoying the most. I found I liked this more than a lot of the other tracks.
Another one I recognise straight away.
Yep.
So I think
It's another single, yep.
Yeah. I like the heavy. It got a bit heavier at the end.
Yeah.
And it takes up a level from the bouncy pace of the rest of the song. So I like a bit of difference, a bit of variety, which I liked.
Yeah, that's fair. As Dust Dances, the first mellow and melodramatic track. This is a sweetness to it. Thanks to the fragility of the vocals. Yeah, I just don't like it. I find this intensely boring.
See, I really enjoyed this one.
Oh, wow.
It's quite dreamy. It feels quite nicely without feeling too much. I felt it was a bit Pearl Jam-esque, which I quite enjoyed.
Okay.
Some of their more mellow tracks, Pearl Jam kind of dip into this kind of territory, so I liked it.
Yeah, I just thought it was really boring.
Everything what your eyes do, you're trying to sleep, or where your tongue rests, is it against your teeth?
A Whole Child Ago. I don't get this song. We have this sad piano melody ruined by background effects, and then it just stops and turns into a flabby, uninspired rock number. It all feels so disconnected, and I end up really disliking it because of that. My thing of this track is you have that introduction that doesn't fit at any point to the rest of the track.
Yeah.
It almost feels like it was supposed to be a separate sort of intermission, but instead it went, no, it's too many tracks, too many tracks. Just add it to the front of this, because they're completely unrelated tracks.
Yeah. It didn't grab me this one. I felt a bit ploddy.
Yep.
A bit more indie sounding starters, but I didn't appreciate that. It ups the intensity and then abruptly stops. So again, we both noticed that. Just stop. But it wasn't a good one for me.
Yeah, I don't get this track. I just don't get it. The conversation is, I needed something to grab me at this stage because I was a bit like, okay, I've just gone through a Dust Dance a whole child ago, and I'm like, I'm not liking this suddenly.
Yeah.
And thankfully this does. The melody and vocals really work for me here, and the uptick in passion that hits the chorus is great. Using that word, great. A track I do enjoy a lot, mainly though because of the melody.
Yeah. I read about it, as I was reading about this album, just to kind of remind myself of when it came out and like in the scheme of Biffy Clyro's releases.
Yep.
It said about the lead singer Simon Neil's mother passing 2 years before this one.
Right, I didn't know that.
So a lot of this was written around like getting over her death and how he was coping with it.
Fair enough.
So kind of when you listen to it, you're like, oh, you get appreciation for it. I really like the way the guitars and the lyrics work. It all works together. So I really appreciate this one.
To see your face, the fluorescent billboard sound, a wonderful life that doesn't exist anymore.
Yep. Now I'm Everyone. I don't care for the peppy instrumentation at first, but this track begins to pick up nicely as it goes on. Hardly what I would call it an exciting track, but I wasn't offended by it.
I like the drum beat on this one.
Okay.
The plinky guitar's got a bit repetitive. There's like a plinky bit, I think, technical terms. But when it all swells, it sounded so much better. A mixed bag. I enjoyed parts, but sometimes the repetition didn't work for me.
Semi-mental. I love the ambient noise at the start and the kick in the heavier groove. This is a faster and heavier track. One I can enjoy because of that. But again, I'm going to come back to a word that I've cropped up several times already, and it's coming up again here. This is boring.
I did like the pace to it.
Yep.
I do like it when the Scottish accent comes through. Because sometimes it sounds a bit American.
Yeah, there are moments where I was kind of like almost trying to pull it out of there because but like I think voices, singer voices and spoken voices are so uniquely different.
I know, but so when the Scottish comes through, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know. It sounds really weird, but just certain songs, certain words, I'm like, oh, I like that.
I couldn't care less. Was that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Love Has a Diameter. Super soft singing and forceful piano melody. It's very poppy. And then again, it switches and turns into a different track. But yeah, again, it just doesn't flow. Even though this has some nice bassiness and the melody is solid, I just don't get these stupid intros. It's the second track where there's been an intro where I'm generally like, that's not connected to the song that follows.
Yeah.
I don't get it. And it's a real shame because I think this is a good track. But again, you've caused this thing where I'm just feel so disconnected because of this stupid starting point. Dead stop. Different track.
Yeah.
Again, it feels like you were like, oh, this is supposed to be a little intermission in between.
Yeah.
And then whatever label or you decided was like, oh, no one wants to hear an album. It might put people off seeing 14 tracks, even if those two other ones would have been 30 to 40 seconds long.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man.
Yeah. No, that's a slow starter. I did like this one. I like the again, twinkly bits. You know what I mean?
I liked it too. I agree with
Yeah.
you saying, but it's just those disconnected intros I don't get.
Yeah. But for me, I enjoyed it.
Okay. Get Fucked Stud. Biffy getting aggressive. Ha ha. Some progressive moments, nice bass, decent vocals, solid melody. I don't dislike this one.
I do like. I know they could sing it to a guitar sound by the intro. Like,
Yeah, I start to really. Yeah, you start to really notice
pick it
that's
out and
exactly.
go, right,
Yeah.
that's definitely like their sound. It's a mixed bag for me, but it didn't really stand out.
That's fair. That's fair.
It was one of them kind of other ploddy tracks that didn't really stand out to me. But I say, Get Fucked, I was like, oh, they can put an explicit on the front
Well,
of their
it's
album.
starred out as well. It's actually
Yeah.
like in all the copies I've seen, it's starred out.
But yeah, no, but on the actual album, you get to put the explicit content on it, don't you?
Oh,
That
right, that's
label.
true.
You have
That's
to add
true.
that onto
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. Yeah, that's something. Falling Stars, one of the hits, and it's very easy to hear why. It's got a nice rhythm and plenty of pensive melody. Lyrically strong, but with enough of an uptick in guitar tone to make it work.
If you want, follow me, and I'll lead you inside. You don't have to run and hide.
I really like this one. A tribute, but not overblown or over sentimental.
Yeah, that's
I thought
true.
it was a nice way of. It wasn't over the top saccharine. It was a nice way of
Yeah,
talking about his mother.
I was trying to work on what word I would use because I sometimes overuse the word melodramatic, even though I think it applies quite nicely. That's why I went with pensive for this.
Yeah, he thought it was like well thought out.
Yeah, you're gonna, it's thought provoking.
Yeah.
9/15. Probably one of the stranger tracks in the album. Certainly quite unique and certainly memorable.
But I like the violins again, and dramatic choir makes this a short, different kind of track. We're on a hell.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I like
I
that.
did to a degree, but I will say I was a bit Biffy Clyro out at this stage. As we get to Machines, which is a melodramatic finale that has nice acoustic guitar, and that's it. That's it as far as I'm concerned. Completely passed by uneventfully for me.
I really, really like.
I know you were gonna,
Did you really think I'd like this one? Yeah. Violins, acoustic guitar, and just a nice way to end the album.
The problem for me was at this stage I was thoroughly bored.
Yeah.
I was thoroughly bored. I experienced several tracks across this album run where I was just really like, so that exists? And to me, this is another one. I'm like, that exists. There's nothing wrong with it. It ain't bothering me. I'm struggling what to write because you're not electing any passion from me.
I think that's why long term I wouldn't go right. I'm gonna inhale everything Biffy Clyro.
This hasn't made me a fan.
But I remember the songs I liked. I remember why I liked them, so it was good for me.
But none of this would go on a playlist for me. None of it.
Machines might like a nice laid back one.
None of it would
Not
go on a
like
playlist for me.
playlist,
None of it. Like if it came on in a scenario where it was playing, I wouldn't be like turn that off. That's rubbish or anything like
Flipping
that.
tables.
Do you know what I mean? Like that. But I'd probably be like, oh yes, Biffy Clyro.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's
Fair
it.
point,
Yeah. Okay. Top 3 tracks. I'll imagine we might be quite different on this. I'll go first.
Yep.
Living is a problem because everything dies. Who's got a match and a conversation is.
Oh.
Were my 3.
Living is a problem because everything dies.
Right.
As Dust Dances and Machines.
Yes, there you go. It's
Very
2
different.
out of 3, completely different. It's an album I suspect that if you're a massive fan of, you are going to defend this like your life depends on it. I'd imagine that's a major thing. But I also suspect if you're a Biffy Clyro super fan, you probably do this a lot, which is, oh yeah, they've got much better stuff on other albums, maybe because you were a fan of the more progressive, unique style before they kind of mellowed out. And maybe this album, actually, if you're like an early Biffy fan, made you dislike the band and you struggle going forward because of that change. I don't know. That's our opinion. It is, of course, Puzzle by Biffy Clyro. You got any thoughts on it? Let us know in the comments.
Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please help us out by giving us a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. If you really liked what you saw, consider donating to keep the website and channel running by buying us a coffee via our coffee page or picking up some merch from our Big Cartel store. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as via our social media, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, as well as listen to our interviews via SoundCloud, Apple Music and Spotify. Just search for GBHBL. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?